Welcome to the Catch Some Soulshine podcast. And today I am honored to have Audra Bartlett here with me today. I'm just going to read her bio because I can't remember things. Audra is a multi-passionate, multi-business entrepreneur that is a mom to a Pisces kid. I'm a Pisces and a pit bull mix. She coaches other visionaries and teaches them to realize their own resourcefulness, to be creative, innovative, and when they do, they see that what they want is already in front of them. As a child, she cultivated the art of creative problem solving. It started with the wild ideas of buying a monkey, William Wegman dog to dress up, and owning a store in the mall at 10. This thirst for finding solutions got her, as an adult, to start a bakery with no money, a 1-year-old on her hip, and a tiny apartment stove. Then to reverse engineering buying a house for $327 at close. Then building a 6-figure real estate business by renting her house out on weekends. 6 businesses and a whole lot of no matter what moments later. She knows that we can all do this. She teaches you how to realize and you don't have hurdles, you have infinite possibilities in her wild visionary coaching program, mastermind, and community. Thank you so much for being here. And I just think this is perfect because last week I talked about finding your soul purpose. And this is exactly what you kind of help people hone in and discover and flourish.
Yeah.
I really want to dive in right away with this story of the $327 house that you bought.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this is a bit of a, just a little bit to speak to like part of finding the soul shine and coming out of a dark place. Understand that in a lot of ways, this process wasn't just, I bought a house, right? This was in so many ways a reclamation. It was healing. It was all the things, because when I kind of first started, like the kind of where the wild visionary came from was the bakery that I started called Wildflower. Wildflower came to my mom. The name came to my mom in a dream. And she woke up and she said, Audra, I got it. Here it is. It's Wildflower because you're a little wild and you bake with flour. And so now I'm leaning into that with like people I work with are a little wild. They're a little unconventional. They think they're a little weird. They think their idea, right, their vision is something nobody can understand or believe or quite conceptualize. And that really speaks to it, because when I started Wildflower, I was out of a really, really toxic relationship. And when I left that relationship, when people say the words like, I couldn't recognize my own face, I always used to think that it was more of a, like, I don't know, thing people say, right? Like it got so bad, I couldn't recognize my own face, right? But I remember that moment where I looked at myself in the mirror and I didn't know who was looking back at me. It had gotten so bad that like I didn't have any connection to myself anymore. It was like I was a soul in terror inside of a body that like was trying to in some way, shape, or form process what was happening to me. And it really took everything that I had energetically, emotionally, physically, spiritually to pull myself out of this, to take my son at the time, 7 months old, go find a little room to move into and extract myself from a situation that was not serving me and was not serving my son, because ultimately I never wanted him to see his mom go through this. I didn't want him to see his mom unhappy. And so this is really more where the story starts, is me kind of extracting myself with every ounce of like, at that point, I had barely any power or self worth left, right? I had to literally take every like morsel that I could find, call on people for help, and extract myself. And a short while after that, when my son was about 1, is when I got the opportunity to open the bakery. And what that looked like was someone was sitting at the table with my roommate at the time, and she was going to manage a new bakery in town. And with that bakery, they needed pastries. And so they asked me, my roommate was like, oh, my roommate bakes things. Maybe we could ask her. And so I just kind of like bootstrapped it. I had zero money. The last $1,000 I had, we had to leave our house we were living in, me, my roommate, and our 3 kids all together combined. So that $1,000 I had went to a deposit on a new apartment so that we could move, so we didn't just end up homeless. And in that new apartment, I just started with an apartment stove and no money and a KitchenAid mixer that I bought from some guy off Craigslist, and we met at a Starbucks to make sure it worked, right? And so there I am building this bakery with a whole lot of just like grit and determination. And eventually I kept building it up to the point where I needed to expand that. I needed to expand my bakery. I needed more space. I had eventually gotten out of my apartment kitchen into a small nonprofit center, but it was still the size of a walk-in closet. So then I kept driving past this house. The house was on the road that I would take from where I was living up to where, my son's grandparents were, my parents were, and I would go that drive quite frequently. And I would always see this house just sitting there. And so after, I don't know, it was a year or 2 of me driving by, and I'm like, nobody wants this house. What's wrong with this house? What's going on with it? Like, it looks like a cute little house. I just decided to pull over one day and peered in the windows, Googled it, pulled up what information I could find, took the realtor's name down. And on my drive back home, I had just decided, like, nothing had changed for me economically, circumstantially. Like, I hadn't even been paying on my student loans. They were in default, right? Like, there was nothing logical about me calling on this house. But I just had this feeling that, like, I just need to call and ask a question. And I remember pulling over, and I didn't want to wait till I got home, because I thought if I got home, I'm going to get distracted. I'm going to lose my gumption. And so I remember calling him and just being like, terrified to call him. Like, terrified that he's going to find me out. Like, he was going to know that, like, I wasn't telling the truth about, and I wasn't even saying that I had money. I just wanted to get information. And so I pulled over, I made the call. He was very nice. He didn't call me out. He gave me the information. And I remember I took it home and just looked at it and said, okay, well, I could live here for less than I'm paying for rent right now. The sign said for lease or for sale. So I said, okay, well, maybe I could move in here. I could have my bakery here. I could figure that out. And so I just started taking steps towards that. I went to see it. I started to try to figure out how I could structure this deal. I, enlisted the help of my stepdad, who was a corporate lawyer and knew not much about real estate law, but was able to at least put something together to put a proposal together. So I ended up structuring this deal, and I had to at one point meet the owners of the property to kind of be like, hey, I'm a nice person. I will live in your house for 2 years and try to buy it at the end. And so none of it was for sure. It was more like, we'll give you 2 years to figure out your credit, figure out your money, and at the end of it, you have the option to buy it. Otherwise, we take it back. And part of the risk that was involved is there was no bathroom or kitchen in the property. They agreed to put the septic system in, no bathroom or kitchen. So I had to get my dad in there to help me put together this really rough cut, rough cut to the point where it's like, it was a countertop, and they were used countertops that I found at Reuse Center on 2x4s. Like, there was nothing fancy about this. We bought sinks from the Reuse Center. So used sinks, used countertops, a tub out of somebody's barn. We did buy a new toilet because that's where I kind of drew the line, right? But we rough cut this entire thing, put it together. I got a stove. I borrowed a stainless steel table from the farm around the corner. And that's what ended up happening. So I'm investing in this. I'm putting in kitchen, bathroom, and praying that I could make it happen. Cut to, about a year or so into it, I was really starting to doubt it because I had to go to credit counseling. I had to get everything ordered. I had to consolidate my student loans. I had to do all of this other stuff behind the scenes. Before I could even move into it, I had to go to the city to get a special permit to even live there. I had to get a certificate of occupancy, right? This was not a like, I see this house and now I'm giving them a check. It was like every step was some sort of hurdle that I had to jump through to make it happen. And then about midway through this process, I'm in it, I'm invested, and I'm scared that I'm not going to make it happen. And I remember like when I teach the process of, I have this process of 8 steps, essentially from like problems to possibility that I take people through with virtually anything you can move through this process. But I remember one of it is stepping into belief. I mean, really stepping into belief. And I remember my best friend was like, she was late night. We're there. She's like, you need to really find a way to believe in yourself here. You need to believe in yourself. So she made me stand in the middle of my house screaming, I'm Audra Bartlett and I own this house. I'm Audra Bartlett and I own this house, like over and over and over again to step into the belief that I could do it. After that, I researched grants. I researched where money could be found. I got a $10,000 grant that I enrolled in. I got a $30,000 grant that I enrolled in. I got negotiated for all the rent money to be put towards the house. And at close, when I finally got to that place, I brought a check for $327. That was the money that I put into this, right? And into making this deal happen at the end. And it's because for most people, you would have been like, oh, I don't know if I can do all these things. I don't know if I want to. I don't know how important it is. I'll just stay in my apartment. I'll find something easier. I was like, no, I'm going to make this happen. And I'm going to ask all the questions. And I'm going to ask all the people. And I'm going to find the money. I'm going to find the resources. And I'm not going to give up.
It's about that resilience, right? We look at outside people and incidents and we think, oh, wow, they're so lucky. They have it made. But yet you forget about all the little baby steps that it takes to put things together to get from point A to point B. And that involves resilience. And that belief factor is so important. I'll put little notes in my bathroom mirror. I am beautiful. Or, I am the star of my life today. And one of the phrases that I love to say is, nothing can enter this sacred space that doesn't serve my highest good. When people hear, oh, she bought a house for $327. Yes, but here's the rest of the story. And it's from that brokenness, that darkness that you forged your way through, not really seeing the light at first, not really knowing where the light was, but you had this desire to keep moving. And wow, look at you now.
Yeah, it was the recognition that like that house was like such, the universe knew that I needed a space, right? It knew I needed something to expand into. And when I look back, like me starting the bakery was like the first point of expansion. I actually have part of the logo for my bakery tattooed on my arm. And I remember when the tattoo artist was doing it, she's done multiple tattoos on my body. And she was like, oh, is this because you plan to have this bakery forever? Do you think you're going to just like always have it? And I was like, no, I don't actually. I don't think I'll have it for all that long, right? I'll have it for several years. I think I ran it for 4 years until I got burnt out. But I knew that that was a big point of expansion for me. It was the moment in which I took the steps to do something that made me believe like, okay, I can start a business. I can be a business owner. I can know how to do that. And I did it wildly imperfect. I made a lot of mistakes. I forgot people. I forgot my boss's order one time. I forgot, I made millions of mistakes. I forgot ingredients. I threw things out. Like I had gotten the wrong permit at one point. Like there was lots of things that happened in it that were so not like easy. But like that was the first point where I was like, okay, I'm reclaiming something. I'm finding my joy and I'm finding it through pastry, through art, right? It was my art. It was my creativity. One of the things, like I got a top 5 bite at one of these charity events that I would do every year. And it was a hibiscus marshmallow that I had made. And it was something that I just kind of on a whim was like, oh, I think I'm just going to throw this onto it wasn't even like it was a small batch. And I just wanted to try it and put it out there. And I figured I'll give them away, like put them out there. Nobody will complain. And it was the one thing, my like creative little purple marshmallows were the thing that was like top 5 bite of the night. And so it was like that. And then it was going each step with the house. And then when I was looking at the house, the realtor said to me, oh, you just know so many things. You really know more than I do about a lot of this stuff. He's like, have you ever thought about doing this? And it was like the seed for what several years later was a no matter what commitment in the midst of working 70 hours and taking care of my son, in which I would go put him to sleep and study for the course because I committed no matter what. I needed to continue to up level and do something more, right? It was just a constant, like each step. And then what I found, right, after doing this, after building 6 businesses over time, at some point, you start to recognize that there is no limit. There's absolutely no limit to what we can create. There's absolutely no limit to what any of us can create. There's no time frame to which we have to create it in. That like, if you can really step into belief you can do absolutely anything you want to, then you get to find the space where you get to be discerning about what you're choosing to engage with and how you're choosing to engage with. It's not just, I need to scrap this together to prove to myself. Once you prove to yourself you can do it, then you get to be discerning. And we were talking about before we got on this call about people stepping into their purpose, into their soul's work, because that's really at the essence. Like I help leaders and entrepreneurs, people that want to do big things, elevate, really push the limits of what they are capable of. Like, and there's more, right? In a healthy way that's allowing them to also live the life that they want. It's recognizing that your soul's work changes over time. Your soul's work is whatever is being asked of you at this moment is the thing that is for your highest good right now. And if we can acknowledge that this is what's good for my highest good right now and lean into that, that's the path to which universe is like, oh, and here's something even cooler, or here's something else, or here's a new experience for you. It's when we stay stagnant in this, like, I don't know. I've been doing this for a long time. And at one point I really wanted to do this. And now I'm in this, like, we get to like allow ourselves to just flow with it too. There is no, you must work a job for the next 30 years of your life or 20 years or 10 years even. Like that is an outdated paradigm that no longer serves I would say the fast pace of the evolution of humanity right now.
It just ties in so well with what I was talking about last week on the podcast is your soul purpose does evolve and change as you do, but you have to be open to it. And I think that's what your coaching is going to be so beneficial for some people. The people that are called to you are the people that are really going to need that coaching, that guidance to expand. And I really believe that we can expand far beyond our wildest dreams. You know, I never dreamed that I would be doing a podcast. I never dreamed that I would be doing art. I never dreamed that I would be a nurse practitioner. I didn't think about those things back then, but just being open and pursuing and having that belief, it's so important. And I think that's a practice that people say, "Oh, I just don't." You can get there, but there's certain tools, certain modalities, certain techniques that you can put into your life that will take you there faster. So I think what you're doing is really such important work, especially now because, like you said, we are moving with all the AI technology and the ever changing. I just read about AI technology in healthcare and how it's going to evolve and change healthcare as we know it. I mean, it's going to change everything. So be ready, folks, get into that groove because you want to grow. So important.
Our purpose here is to grow. There's not one
Yeah.
thing. Like, you're not only meant to ever be a writer or only meant to ever be a doctor or only meant to be one thing. And I think that too is this, like, I remember for so long thinking, like, I want to figure out my one thing. I don't think there is a one thing for anybody. I think it's just knowing that if you give yourself the permission, or if you can't, right? This is part of like my work right now is I am the permission slip sometimes. I'm like, they lean on me as the permission slip. They're saying, oh, like, she thinks I can do it. She thinks that this is possible. Like, they have to borrow my belief. They have to borrow my faith. They have to borrow that for a little while as I teach them how to cultivate their own. There are so many people out there, like, we're here to help. We're here to do these things. We're here to help. Here's my XYZ formula to like figure it all out for you. I say that if you can see the path, you're probably following in somebody else's footsteps. What true leaders, true visionaries, like we were talking about before, like an Abraham Hicks or anybody who is leading you on a path, if they're leading you on their specific path, then it's not your path. You have to understand that, like, someone that you are going to and seeking guidance from is always going to point you back to yourself, because you know your highest and best good, even if you're not willing to say it out loud or accept your truth. Like, when I was in my darkest moment, I knew that I needed to leave that circumstance. I knew that I needed to leave a relationship. I knew, right in our soul, we are like, nope, I gotta go. I gotta go. But like, saying it out loud and accepting our truth is so much harder. And that comes in our soul work, where we're in something that we like, and I see it so often. Like, I see people's responding, like, I pay attention, like, part of what I do is energetic, it's intuitive, I get knowings, I'm highly aware of these things. I have, it's like a mix of like woo and systems, right? I can do it all. I remember asking a waitress in like a Denny's or somewhere like that, and I remember being like, Mom, I want to ask her, like, does she like her work? Does she want to do something else? Like, is this what she wants to be doing? And I don't remember her response, but I remember being curious and wanting to ask her, like, is this the work that you really want to be doing? And like, that same curiosity is stuck with me. Like, is this the work that you really want to be doing? And the majority of people say no. Or they don't say no, they give me a whole list of like, well, here's the 7 reasons why I'm trying to convince myself that this is okay.
On the flip side of that, part of the mind shift and the mindset is we were talking to a guy that was maybe possibly going to go to rehab, for example. And it's like, yeah, it's just going to be horrible, but you can get through it. And I said to him, you think it's going to be horrible? Guess what? You're right. It's going to be horrible. On the other hand, if you think it's going to be amazing and you're going to be able to touch someone's life in there, and you're going to be able to lift someone up, and you're going to forge a path for a brand new life, guess what? It won't be horrible.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you thinking? I think about that waitress, and yeah, I do
Mm-hmm.
believe a lot of people are dissatisfied with what they do, but I've had people, servers or the checkout lady at the grocery store, those food tasters that they have
Mm-hmm.
at Sam's Club or
Mm-hmm.
Costco or whatever. And you walk up to them and some of them are like, "How you doing? Oh, you
Having
got
the
to try
best
this. This
time,
is
right?
so good," right? And then you walk up and then you'll see somebody else and it's like, "Yeah, here you go. Thank you,"
Mm-hmm.
and you can tell, you know, part of that soul purpose, that journey, the wild visionary is
Mm-hmm.
you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have a job and like it, but yet expand beyond that too.
And sometimes not all of what I'm doing is people leaving what they're doing. I have
Yeah,
clients that are expanding within what they're doing. They've just been
yeah,
doing it in ways that are not sustainable or good for them, burning themselves out because they're not structured or systemed or put together in a way that feels good for them and actually is giving them the appropriate space to live the life that they want. Because
mhm,
I personally have done both of these and I've helped people with both of these things. Like I've left things that aren't serving me anymore. I've left things that had been serving me and I just weren't for me any longer. But I've also had to root into things that in some way, shape, or form are what I want to be doing, but you just have to look at it from a different perspective within it. It's like,
mhm,
yeah, I'm unhappy in my business right now because I built it in a way that wasn't sustainable. When you're at the beginning of something, like I talk about, you have an idea, baby, and you're like being a new mom and you're figuring it out, but then they become a teenager and you're like, oh, I got to do things a little different now. I got to
yeah,
figure it out. And so each one of these points is like an opportunity for us to say, like, what is the point of joy here? What is the point of exploration here? What am I learning from this point? And it is allowing yourself that space to keep following it, to keep following your soul's purpose, which is the growth and finding those different spaces of growth.
and yet we were talking about my ripple experiment, and you pointed out to me, I think this is gonna be great, but how can you sustain it? And, if I was fixated on this one key way, this one key path and say, "Well, it can't deviate, I can't change it." No, I think it's gonna evolve and grow as I grow, and I don't know what the end is gonna look like, but I know it's gonna be magical, and that's a really I really thank you for pointing that out because will it be sustainable to paint all these pictures for people? Well, for now, yes. As I grow, it's gonna have to grow and evolve and change with me
Mhm. And I
and
think
with everyone involved.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, like to that point, what holds people back from that pivot point or that change point is the fact that they are like, but everybody really likes the way that I'm doing it right now, or it's like the people pleaser kicks in, or
Mhm.
or the worry of like what somebody else is going to think when we shift our business or we rebrand it or we do something different or we no longer offer that thing. That within itself is not sustainable, because if it's making you miserable or it's challenging you or making it unsustainable for you, no matter how you look at it, your energy behind that is not going to be there. And
Right.
so it's like we had a conversation earlier about like this giving and receiving. If the giving in your business is feeling hard and really terrible to you, right? You're affecting that flow and you're really actually not giving the people that are there for it, even if they like the product still or they're happy with it, you're not giving them the real, true experience anymore, right? You're giving them this forced experience. In every time we pivot, I have a friend right now, she's had one business, she closed it down, she started a new business, she's doing all within the same Instagram platform, and she's like, I'm having a hard time because I'm losing all these followers, and people that aren't for your pivot in your business are opting out, which are making space for the people that are for it, because ultimately we're pointing back to this is our one beautiful life, And we don't need to be doing anything that is not truly for us anymore. And everything we are doing, we are choosing. And this is one really powerful point. Like, people always want to argue with me about, are you doing something that you really want to? Anything you're doing, to some degree, you want to. And if you can claim the fact that you want to do it, the reason why you want to do it, you can also claim what things you don't want to do. But if we're in this place of like outsourcing that power to the external circumstances or to the obligations or to the people that require us to do it, right? Oh, my clients, what they like it that way, or they want to do that, or like I have to pick my kid up, or like I hate paying my electric bill, but it's something I have to do. No, you're choosing to do all of these things. And that gets to be the point of like, yes, I still want to pick my kid up for soccer practice because I like to pick my kid up, right? I don't want him to have to walk home 10 miles. I want to pay my electric bill because I like electricity. And then do you want to continue to offer that thing or to do this work or to show up in that way? If in truth you don't, you get to look at that.
What do you think about, because I've read a lot about I don't know if you've read the book 10x is better than 2x.
I haven't. No.
And it talks about how you can do something and get 2 times greater.
Mm-hmm.
But why don't you shoot for 10 times greater? Because 10x is better than 2x.
Mm-hmm.
And how you do that is, what he says is, sift out all the things that you think you want to do. Focus on the top 20 or 30% and let the rest go. And you can get to 10x just as easily as you can 2x.
Mm-hmm. It's the conversation that a lot of people talk about where once we can mentally get past certain blocks, right? Like for a lot of people, like making 6 figures is a block. But once they make 6 figures, they can make multiple 6 figures. A lot of people say once they make $1 million, getting to 2 or 3 or 5, like then becomes really easy. And it's the idea that like, and it's not to say this is about monetary things or getting to $1 million or whatever, but it's about setting the intention to 10x, right? Something with the idea that it's, if you can stay connected to you being honest and you enjoying the journey, it's really looking back, right? Pulling it full circle back into your purpose, into this growth, and the intention of us being here on the planet is to grow and to learn. And so when you're only going for like an incremental shift or increase, you're really capping your growth. It's less about whether you get to the 10x and more about you giving yourself space to grow and learn.
So this is the example that I was trying to think of. He talked about this tennis player that wanted to get a scholarship to play tennis in college. He was finding coaching and what have you to get the scholarship to get to college. And then the thought occurred, well, maybe I could play tennis in the Olympics, right? So in order to play tennis in the Olympics, he had to seek out different coaches, different techniques, different regimes. So instead of shooting for the scholarship in college, he shot for the Olympics. And if you're shooting for the stars, you're going to 10x whether you make it to the Olympics or not. You're going to be better than if you were shooting for the college scholarship. Yeah. And I thought, that is just such a perfect example. Why not go for the gusto?
Yeah. And to kind of speak to that, like my understanding of my work has shifted. My recognition, like this really speaks to like my evolution of kind of my soul and my soul's calling. I was talking to my partner about, he's like, you know, who is your person? Who is the person you're helping? How are you helping them? Like, he's great. He's my little champion in the background. He's like, go ahead, you do all the things. Like, you know, he wants to see me like go to outer space. And I'm grateful for that support, because not everybody's partner is like championing them. Their fears often get in the way. You know, he's like hearing me out, talk about it. And he was like, you really want to be the force behind the people doing big things, doing huge things in the world. And I have been to a lot of degrees, but even bigger, right? Like I'm shooting even bigger, because I wrote, and he's like, so I think of myself more as like the force multiplier behind that. Like I want to be the force multiplier behind the people doing epic things in the world. And I remember that coming through for me when I was watching the interview with Oprah and Viola Davis. I don't know if you saw it on Netflix. And it's like an hour-long interview you can watch on Netflix. Okay. We get the idea, right? Whether you've watched it or not, Oprah, Viola Davis, awesome.
Yeah, got it. Right.
Great stuff. Watch it. Everybody watch it. But Viola kept talking about her therapist. She kept being like, oh, my therapist this, or this is what I learned in therapy, or this is what I did. And I remember thinking very clearly, like, how do I become someone like Viola Davis's coach? Like, how do you become Viola Davis's therapist? And so that's like that was like a lead-in point for me. It's like, okay, like I don't want to be the coach for the every man or the every woman or the every person, right? My desire is being the person that helps people 10x. Helps people shoot for the stars, helps people. That's why it's the wild visionary. It's like how big can we go? And let me be your force multiplier, right? Let me help you birth the vision that nobody else believes in.
And it's so similar to my ripple idea. When you start a ripple, it impacts people, places, and things far beyond what you could ever imagine seeing, feeling, or believing, and far beyond your presence here on earth. It's wide and far. It is that 10x vision. We both have it.
It's
awesome.
just different. It's just different little angles, right? You're rippling through this like gift and this sharing of this love and giving on. I'm the person that's like, you want to shoot for the moon. Awesome. Let's get you there. Let's make that happen. Because that is exactly the core of why I want it. You get to see that ripple. And you can't you can't even actually see the whole ripple. You just know that you were there when it was started, right? You know that like that started, and you can't even imagine the number of lives it touches.
So exciting. I definitely look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I can't wait to see where you are taken on this journey. And I was just thinking, when you were talking, you're talking about one-on-one coaching and whatnot. And I see you far more impactful on a huge stage, speaking engagements, group coaching, helping corporations. Sky's the limit, because people need it. People need that spark.
Yeah, and that those are a lot of the things that I'm cultivating. And I think the important thing is that like with the leaders, it's a unique thing, because often the leaders don't think that they have the space for somebody to hear them. They have all the same human problems. They have all the same things. They're not superhuman. They are human. They are experiencing the same things, and they need the space to be heard and held and cultivated and grow, right? Without judgment.
That community aspect, so important. Where can people find you? And I'll put it in the show notes as well.
Sure. Yeah, AudraBartlett.com, Audra Bartlett on Facebook, Audra Bartlett Coaching on Instagram. Type my name in, you will find me.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast today. You're a wealth of information, and your energy is magnificent.
Thank you for joining me this week on the Catch Some Soulshine podcast. I'm a little bit behind schedule. I've had a lot of things going on. Had a Black Friday sale, sold a lot of art. I have a sick child who's been in and out of the hospital. The show must go on. And I'm glad you had a chance to listen to Audra Bartlett She's very inspiring, shows what can be possible with self-belief and resilience. And if you want to look her up, I'm going to have her links in the bio, and also offering, as always, a free 11 affirmation printable journal and a free art print. So I'll see you next week.